Hello, everyone, and welcome to another stream here. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is a Monday, and I'm Grant, one of the community managers here at Relic Entertainment, and I'm joined with
Eliot. Hello, everybody.
Eliot in a beanie.
So,
Everyone's been commenting on it all day.
Yeah. I mean, I also shaved. I tweeted about I need to shave today.
For a very important
I
reason.
shaved. Yes, and that's because we're on stream today. Obviously, if you guys are just tuning in and didn't see Grant mentioned, we did drop the patch notes today that is coming up later this week. But again, we're here to talk a little bit about about everything. And for us, it's a huge thank you to everybody who's playing, watching, sharing, and sending and sharing your feedback to us on the forums, on socials, Reddit, etc. It's helped us continually improve and evolve the game. And as mentioned, if you're not part of it, we do have our Age of Empires Discord. I think Ashley, if you could put the plug in chat. That's somewhere where we're a lot of our developer partners and such are on there. And and as mentioned, if you have any feedback for the game or found a bug, please post on the forums. That is our most frequently checked channel. So
Yeah, as Eliot says, this might be a longer stream, so we're going to kind of cut through some of the stuff really quickly. As you mentioned, join the Discord if you'd love to be part of our community there of members looking for games, talking about strategy, all of that. Bugs or comments, anything like that, you can share on the forums, forums.ageofempires.com. But majority of today is going to be us talking about the patch here, and this is for patch 1.2.3. And as people might have guessed, we are once again joined by two members of our balanced team here, Zach and Eric. Hello, you two. Welcome aboard.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, thank
Glad
you
to be
so much
here
for
again.
both of you joining. I think chat is always loves to see your two faces here. So
when you said my pants were in the shot, I didn't realize they were like right there.
I told you.
You were given fair warning, Eric.
You were
We told you, but you still didn't move it.
Yeah, I told Eric, I'm like, your pants are in the shot. He's like, I'm just gonna leave them there. So
people love pants. It'll be fine.
I do like the other thing in the background there, that Age of Empires plaque you've got.
Yeah, do you want to show us that?
Our
Actually,
shiny new plaques.
Eric?
I'm all about it.
Yeah, do you want to show us that?
Can you navigate to grab that?
I don't. Actually, mine's over here too.
There we go.
Oh yeah.
Mine's on my wall back over there, off in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
I
yeah.
haven't had time to frame mine. I haven't had time to frame mine yet, but mine's gonna go over here. Should I just hold it over here while we're
just hold it the entire stream. Oh, I think there.
I don't have mine within arm's reach, but I have one too.
You didn't get the memo? We're all having our plaques at the same time. Yeah, so those were just a little launch plaque we all got. Kind of nice. So it adds a bit more decoration to this tiny box I am in streaming from for myself. It goes very nicely with the pair of pants Eric has. And yeah, so yeah, I guess thank you so much, Eric and Zach, for joining us today. We have a large number of patch notes to actually go through. For anyone who's interested, you can definitely read through these notes on the website and the blog later. However, you might want to just stick around as we're going to probably talk through the majority of these here with the developers and hear some of their thoughts on why these changes are being made, how they might impact gameplay, and all of that. All right.
So why don't I kick us off with just the first bit, and then from there we can kind of start jumping into
Take it hard.
Into it, right? So for us, as you guys can tell, it's patch 11.009. Anybody who caught me on Reddit, the wrong number I posted, I deleted that right away and posted this, so that's the correct one. There's no secret notes. I just put the wrong number. It happens. But this time around, we are, as mentioned, this patch is going live later this week, and we're making some general changes to Siege. That's to ensure there's sufficient counterplay, which Eric and Zach would love to hear more about as we get to that portion later in the patch notes. We are also impacting animation canceling, which I know was something that was definitely talked about with the community and we saw in some play online. And then lastly, doing a pass on a variety of balance of civs. And one thing that I definitely want to touch base with the two of you is kind of the philosophy behind that. I know we talk a lot about it, but I think the big one is always been how do we help bring the other civs up, and and not just like grab a nerf hammer and just start bashing things away, but how do we help like shape up their communities, other civs. So we'd love to hear a little more about that.
Totally. Who doesn't
Yeah,
like a good buff, right? Everyone likes buffs.
yeah, exactly, yeah. But that being said, as mentioned, this is coming out later this week. So yeah, I think we should just jump into it. Why don't I first start with a big one that I know was something that was definitely brought up, we saw in the community, was the animation canceling issue.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, the whole animation canceling thing, right? Like, while it does add an extra element of the skill, right? Of like I'm, clicking and changing, clicking back and forth and doing attacks and trying to build up my base and, make my economy large while I'm doing all this. Like it does add skill and complexity to the mechanical execution, but it's not super fun, right? It's like, well, I have to constantly do this thing all the time. And it also doesn't look great because like the units kind of stutter and stuff. So we want players to focus on this like high level, I'm like the commander of the battlefield and I'm making these big, strategic decisions instead of doing these little small tiny micro things to just get a little itsy bitsy tiny advantage. So there's some of the reasons around why we thought it was really important to get this change out.
Yeah, actually, with regards to micro, we still want micro to be a thing, and when you're playing, and managing these battles, you should be able to micromanage. But this is the kind of micromanagement that isn't desirable because you have to do it, and in a lot of cases, you feel as though you have to do it in order to be competitive. And yeah, it's just not the right kind of micro. So I think a lot of people are going to be really pleased that this is being removed, and they can start to focus more on that grand strategy and making sure that they're spending their time on more meaningful actions in the game as well.
Yeah, totally. And like some of the micro that's like fun in our game, right, is like, trying to get your horsemen positioned at the right ankle and like attack the archers and like getting your mangonels, to like line up and get a really like right in the center mass, right, and do like really critical damage. So yeah, not
The
that we don't
feel-good
like micro,
moments.
but we want like fun,
Yeah,
impactful micro decisions the players are making.
totally. And we want that to feel good, not just like, oh, he's cheesing me and killing my castle faster than he should.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Thank you for that. Yeah, and just continuing on here, and some of these things I'm just going to read, and then I'll ask, prompt you guys, because some of them, like fix the bug where palisade walls can no longer be targeted. I think that's a pretty straightforward one. I don't think we need to go any more into that. If you're attacking, you want to make sure that you can, burn down your enemy's walls and
Bugs are bad.
continue on
We
with
don't
your
like
push, right?
bugs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We'll hit the
Yeah.
bugs with the nerf bad. That's what
Yeah,
we'll do.
contrary to what people may think, of course we hate bugs. Like it's never something that you'd want to run into when you're in any type of game development, right? So, but yeah, moving forward, Trebuchet projectiles now deal area of effect damage when missing their intended target. This one's a I'd say pretty big change with especially when later in the game with Siege. So, do you guys want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll talk about this one. So, trebuchets, they used to have a 25% accuracy against units, which meant that 3 times out of 4, they would actually miss their target. The problem is that when the trebuchet projectile misses its target and hits something else visually, it would do no damage. And so that kind of made a lot of frustration with it because it felt like the trebs were being quite ineffective. And so this is really more of a bug fix, actually, because now when a trebuchet misses its intended target, if it still hits something, it will still damage that unit. And this is kind of useful for all trebs, but it's specifically very useful for the English because they get the shattering projectiles upgrade. And previously, 3 out of the 4 times that thing was hitting, it wasn't doing any damage in the area around it or anything at all. So now when you get shattering projectiles, it will actually be far more effective. And I'm looking forward to seeing that being used a bit more because I think people were skipping it for those reasons before, and now it should be quite interesting and potentially very devastating if you have a few trebs lined up.
Yeah, it's a really cool in terms of like the asymmetric gameplay, right? Of like being English and you actually want to have more trebs in your army later in the game instead of just, like having cannons, right? Like that's a really interesting, different stylistic choice to make and have a cool thing to encourage you to do. Also, props to Zach on the implementation for this change, because we had, like 3 meetings talking about this, and it's like, we can't do it, we need programming support, and you're like, hey, I think I figured out a thing, and then you like showed it off to everyone, we're like, oh, he fixed it, oh, this is sick.
Works. It's nice when things work.
Yeah, I love it.
I do see we actually have a question on the Trebuchet there. For the AoE damage, does it only happen when it misses, or what about attacking the ground? Soldier asked that in chat.
No, it will always do the AoE damage. The splash will always be there. The base Trebuchet doesn't have an AoE really. It's like really tiny. So that's really just direct hits. Once you get the AoE damage, you can attack ground as well, and it will do damage to everything in the area.
But like we're saying, since it kind of scatters around the target, it is potential that you will miss, who you're intending to hit, but it could actually hit in between 2 other units, and it could actually do a little bit of damage to both of those. It's not going to just like kill the units, and that's really, like Zach's saying, that's where the Shattering Projectiles really shines.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right.
Yeah. Okay. That is a pretty cool change. I'm excited to give it a try in game. So, yeah, moving on. We fixed a couple bugs with Incidentary ships. One being the attack damage range increasing significantly, which I don't think anybody who is playing against it loved it. So obviously that's a bug we fixed, as well as exploding tour even more times in some cases. So we did increase the explosion damage. I think those are pretty straightforward. Yeah. A big one though is the scout cost increase. I know this is going to impact some early game. It's also going to change some things goes. Do you guys want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about the scout internally, and how useful it is, how many different things you can do with the scout, and how many scouts people are building. And some people just have their one starting scout, and that's kind of like all they do the whole game. So we didn't want to do anything that would affect the one scout players, and specifically, we kind of found an issue where players were just building like huge hordes of scouts. So if you just build 2 scouts, this is only going to set you back 10 food, right? It's not going to be a big deal. But if you were building like 30 scouts, that was really more what we were targeting specifically with this change of bringing down the general like effectiveness of this when people were like trying to build big armies of scouts instead of building other units.
All right.
All right, Elliot. Before you hop on to the next one,
yeah.
Good question in chat. Where did you get your sweet hat? Your sweet hat, as they say.
Is someone actually asking?
Someone actually did. Yes, Pantelix in chat asked where you got your hat.
Oh, okay. It's from Herschel. It is I'd say pretty well-known clothing brand at this point. I dropped the link if someone really wants.
Not sponsored.
To get the toque.
It's not an affiliate link, right?
Yeah,
Getting kickback from
it
every
is
sale.
just Herschel. Yeah. Okay, moving on. So a big change we did was to fishing. Obviously, I know that fishing had a big impact on gather rates, especially with fishing boats. Not so much as much with shore fishing, but definitely with fishing ships in general. Do you guys want to touch a little bit on the changes we made to both the shore fish and the deep fish?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. So, fishing is right now a bit of a no-brainer, right? Like, it's just too good of a resource, and since you can build the dock in the Dark Age and start fishing in the Dark Age, you can really accelerate your economy early on. And losing fishing access can also lead to snowballing the game very quickly. If you don't have fish and your opponent does, it can be really hard. We still want fish, though, to be like an exciting opportunity. We want them to actually be really interesting to players. We want players to see fish and go, oh, I really do want to fish those. But if you don't fish them, it shouldn't just be the end of the game for you. So the first thing we're doing is reducing the gather rate slightly. And then the second thing we're doing is halving the amount of food which will be in each deposit. Eric, maybe you can talk about what we hope those changes will achieve.
Yeah, we kind of want fish to be similar to like the deer and the boar and the sheep, right? How it's a big burst of food that'll kind of accelerate, propel your economy, but it will be like a limited resource. Of course, there's the slowly respawning deep fish, but overall, most of the food you're getting, you will actually be able to like expend it. So there's some interesting decision making on like how many fishing boats do I want, right? Do I want to like eat it all really fast and go for this big burst, but then my fishing ships are going to be kind of useless, right? So kind of interesting back and forth strategies around fishing ships is what we're looking for with this. And there's just a max potential benefit, like Zach was saying, in terms of owning the water, right? There's only so much you'll be able to get out of that.
Yeah. And halving the deposits should really help to push players into the more dangerous areas of the map, especially on maps with larger bodies of water, right? So as you deplete the ones near to you sooner, you kind of have to go further away, and that should increase the risk to fishing, and then potentially allow your opponent to have more counterplay against your fishing ships as well.
Yeah, and it makes those techs actually better too. There's those fishing ones
Oh
where they
yeah.
like hold extra resources. That's pretty good if you have to travel 20, 30 seconds away to get your fish.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are all significant points. Something that we've always been talking about with our map design is that we always people to be challenging and also assessing risk on whether or not you can go for a resource, right? So having these changes should be at least a big significant change, and it'll be interesting to see how the water control plays out and with this big update.
Yeah, it's
Now,
probably
oh
sorry,
yeah,
just real quick. It's probably worth mentioning water in general. You
hmm
know, and sort of acknowledge that water is still something that we want to improve over time, and that's kind of we're making steps towards that in this update and in the next update as well. But we're really planning on focusing more heavily on water. Following the next update, so we have a lot planned and a lot we want to do with it. We're just sort of putting down that initial groundwork now, and we have a lot still to do.
Laying the track.
Yeah.
yeah, and actually, I just want to quickly address Gears of War, Gear with a double E. Asked about whether or not you guys are working on map generation. We have a dedicated maps team that works very closely with the balance team, and they're like I always see you guys chatting away, and Nick, who's the lead for map design, is always constantly talking. So it's always great to see. But yeah, it's all we're all integrated into live ops, so there's always constant work on it. So yeah. Now, a big one that is a big general change, but I think is going to be part of a big impact to the patch itself and to the game is Siege. We had a lot of changes to Siege here. And so I want to see if you guys want to start with. Why don't we just go from top to bottom here? But the big one, obviously, is the catch up speed has been reduced from 100% to 40%.
Yeah, this one was interesting. I sort of deemed it the siege race car fix. Because the when you're using these formations, the siege had 100% bonus movement speed, max potential in formations. So like they were able to like outrun cavalry in some cases, which was not really what we wanted with siege, right? We wanted the like lumbering, slow, powerful thing, and the siege equipment is obviously very powerful right now, but it didn't really have the like slow lumbering feel to it. So that's sort of what a number of these changes have gone to address.
Yep. And that's something that's it's gonna be pretty interesting to see, right? I know that a lot of people obviously use Siege to especially not only push but also to end games. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamic that changes with this. Now a big one as well is that we've increased the torch bonus damage versus Siege from our horsemen, camel riders, and fire lancers and knights from +10 to +20. And I think it's something that you guys just briefly touched upon is the whole counterplay and being able to catch up cavalry to essentially punish those who are out of position, which is a big thing part of our game, as well as finding a way to counterplay, right?
Yeah, exactly. And part of part of cavalry, right, is like it intuitively just feels like it should counter siege, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
super fast, so you can close the distance, and if it's like a mangonel, it's going to be harder for the slower shot to land on you. And then also it's a higher health pool, right? So it can take some more hits while it's getting in there. But one of the key differences is you're paying a lot more resources for the cavalry units, right? Like you could build one spearman or 3 knight for the same number of total resources, right? So it felt like, it was you could get your cavalry into position, no problem, but then once they got there, they took like a really long time to actually burn down the siege weapons. So we specifically targeted this bonus damage on their torches. We didn't just increase the torch damage of the unit because we didn't want horses running around burning your whole town down. So it's just specifically for cavalry attacking other siege weapons that we have this change.
And this is a combination of issues, right? Like we had the formation speed issues, so the siege is moving faster than it should have, and then the cavalry, which could catch it, weren't able to actually do the damage before it zipped off into the distance. So you should be able to catch the siege now, and then when you do, the cavalry should be more effective against it as well.
Absolutely.
And that segues quite nicely into the third point as well, which is the health.
Yes, big change health.
Yeah,
yeah.
so in general, it was like the bombard, right? The bombard hit points were like
Mhm.
so high, it was able to counter other siege weapons, and that is, the bombard is very specifically supposed to be anti-building, and while it is somewhat of a generalist, it does decent damage against all things. It is not intended to be countering other siege weapons. Like that's what we have the Springald for, that's what we have the Culverin for, and then of course cavalry having the bonus damage as well. So we've made quite a few changes to the bombard with this update, right? With the formation catch-up speed, the unit just moving slower and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But we do realize its base damage is still quite good. It still hits pretty hard. So we kind of want to evaluate all these changes. We don't want to move too many things all at the same time. So this is a quite substantial changes that we've made here. So we want to put these out, have you guys play with them, give us feedback, see what you think, and we'll make more
Mhm.
tweaks from there.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's
And that's
actually a
something that
really
Yeah,
Go
go
ahead,
for it.
Eliot.
Sorry.
Oh, I
No,
was
no,
going
I
to
didn't mean
say,
to.
there's a good point from Eric there. We want to make sure that we can evaluate the changes. We don't want to ever make too many knee-jerk reactions or any knee-jerk reactions. And we'll be watching. We're watching a lot of the games. We're reading the forums. We're making sure that we're hearing the feedback. And so we will definitely be watching carefully to see how these change things. And we can always make more changes in future if it's enough or not enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm going to skip ahead because this is big talking about bigger mentions about siege.
Yeah.
But um, as mentioned, we are doing an across the board siege move speed reduction. Right, we've reduced. If you look at the next point, the bombards went from 0.88 to 0.62. Springolds 1 to 0.88. Maginals 0.88 to 0.75, and SBs from 0.94 to 0.81. So it should help with the whole counterplay part and really making sure that you position your units correctly instead of just rolling Springolds across the map. Which, not gonna lie, I definitely did the same thing a couple patches ago. I definitely was, they like to go zoom zoom, so definitely joined in
Let
on
them
that.
fly, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. But I think one change that I really do like that I know that we had some big changes to the Springald, especially, but a couple patches ago. But the big one is now siege weapons will also deal their bonus damage that we did. I think Springolds went from 60 plus 20 to now 30 plus 90. So that extra bonus damage is now going to be able to hit ships and actually help with engaging with naval when you are either you've lost the waterfront or you're trying to push back. You're able to now use siege weapons that it kind of makes sense too, right? You have a big like hulking Springold, you should be able to pierce through a side of a ship, right? So
Yeah,
glad to see
absolutely.
that we did make that change.
Zach, did you want to talk more about that change in particular against the
Yeah,
boats?
sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited about this one because it means that you have more options. A lot of the time, if things don't go your way on water, you can have a really hard time getting back on the water, or on hybrid maps where your opponent might have a bunch of ships in the river. You don't necessarily want to commit a dock. You can now start using that siege against the ships. And actually, this was something we intended some time ago, and we're realizing now that, yeah, this was sorely missing for a while. But the idea here is that players have more options available to them. You can build defensive structures, but the downside there is, of course, that they're not mobile. And so with having the siege, you can obviously contest the water, but then you could also potentially roll it across the other side of the map, across a crossing, and use it to assault your enemy there as well. So adds a bit more versatility to the siege, and it means there's a bit more counterplay once someone does actually have water control and you're trying to gain that back.
Yeah, and like you think about a cannonball hitting a ship, that's like the perfect thing to use to sink ships.
It's
So like
logical.
it should take some damage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
So
like
no,
feels really
it's
good now using like culverins
mhm.
and bombards against ships. Like you feel like you can actually fight back against them. Whereas before they were just pasting all your siege weapons. You're just losing thousands of resources.
Yep. That's all I have to say. That I
Yep.
fully am happy to see that one for sure.
Yes.
All right. So, is there anything else in the general sense that we want to chat a little bit before we dive into the more Civ specific changes? Eric and Zak, I think maybe a big one is like maybe prefacing why we try to like the way we try to approach more buffing other civs versus just nerfing one. I think might be a good one to touch on before we dive into the specific changes. If you're okay with that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, basically, we have the like this spring patch is like, you know, it's like a really big, meaty, like huge list of things, right? So we're able to really do a lot of buffs to all the different civs, versus these like this update and the one before, they were kind of smaller, and we just wanted to get like a smaller number of like really critical high impact changes in. So in terms of like buffs versus nerfs, definitely like that patch that's coming is going to be really focused on having a ton of really great buffs for all the different civs. So we've kind of been like cherry picking a couple items from that patch into these ones. So I think it's going to be nice to have like the whole thing, the whole picture, you know, sort of all together there. Whereas right now we're kind of piecemeal, sort of taking the things to address like based on the data we've gotten and like the feedback that players are having and stuff like that. You know, we've sort of targeted specific areas like, oh yeah, the Mongols are a little bit, you know, are too strong, you know, so we've been doing some couple nerfs to them, and then, you know, like Abbasid being one of the lower win rate civs, we're looking to do some more buffs to them in these updates. Not to say that's going to perfectly solve the problem, right? There still are a lot more really cool changes coming. I am particularly excited about some of the things we may be doing with camels here in the future. But for now, we have a smaller list of concise, high impact changes.
Okay. You know, people are going to quote us on that one now, so
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to wait and see on
No
that
take
specifically.
backs.
But no take backs, not allowed. All right, perfect. So, as mentioned, this is a patch. We did a whole thing patch versus update. Patches are much more smaller, so we do have some number of changes. Obviously, we did talked about siege, talked about fishing. We talked about just general things that we're sorting, but now we're getting to the more specific. It's not going to be a super exhaustive one compared to the an update. We do have our spring update. If you remember about our roadmap, that's going to be going to have a lot more changes to it. But why don't we start diving into it? Let's go first.
Real quick,
Abbasid
actually,
Dynasty.
I know we had
Sorry.
from the general changes we had those the explosive incendiary ship changes. I know Zach, you worked on them. Was there anything you wanted to add about that?
There's not too much to add there. I mean, I think everyone knows what the problems were and that they were just bugged. The explosives tech was making the AoE far larger than it should have been. And the double detonation bug as well. In fact, I think if you spam attack move enough, you could get it to triple detonate too.
Oh
I
my
think
gosh.
I've seen examples of that. So we know that they're really, really problematic on hybrid maps, especially where there's crossings or any map with water where you might have units within half a screen of the water. So
Yeah, Confluence, dude. It was
yeah,
brutal.
we really needed to fix that. So that's why it was really high up on our list. We knew that was a big problem, and we were hearing a lot about it from the community. So it's going to have a high impact. But also, there is one additional change in there is that after we play tested the fixed demolition ships, so they only detonate one time, we actually found that they were a little bit underwhelming. And so we actually had to buff up their damage a little bit from 300 to 400. And that's really just for the naval combat. And of course, since they're not double detonating, they'll not do twice as much, but a little bit less now.
All right. All right. Anything else before we dive into the specific portion?
Let's do it. Let's jump on in.
Let's go Civs.
Before we do, chat, we are reading
Yeah.
the chat. I and Grant are not going to flip our glasses upside down. We are reading the chat, though, right?
You don't want me to have these upside down because then I'm not going to be able to read the chat. So
whoever Vogel is God, I know what you're trying to do. We are paying attention, all right? So if you guys do have questions for either any of us or for Eric and Zach, please do put it it is not a pre-recorded prediction.
Wow, we're really good at predicting things. In fact, we
Guys are so
we
smart.
predicted
Alright.
someone would know this as a pre-recorded prediction.
It's all scripted.
Everything is a simulation.
Oh no.
No, anyways,
Okay.
moving on back to the point. Abbasid Dynasty. I think you did mention this, Eric, that we are looking to help buff up the Abbasids. We did reduce the age up time across all the ages from 120 seconds to 105 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we know first of all that the Abbasid have the lowest win rate, the lowest pick rate. So we recognize that the Civ needs some boosts, and as Eric mentioned, we'll have more to come soon, which I'm really excited for. But this is sort of our first step towards improving the Abbasid here. Essentially, we're knocking off 15 seconds for that age up time in every age. Now, the main thing is that we want that House of Wisdom to feel like a bonus. Right now you don't have to spend villager time to advance to the next age. Instead, you press the wing upgrade and it does it for you, and your villagers can still gather resources in that time. But because it's a fixed time to actually complete the upgrade, it can sometimes feel a bit punishing because you can't power build the landmark like you could with a normal civ. You can't just whack 20 villagers on it to speed it up. So by making it less, we kind of reduce that sort of penalty feeling. We want it to feel stronger. But also in the early game, I think players will probably feel this most as they're advancing to the feudal age.
Totally.
So 105 seconds is about 10 seconds faster than 3 villagers building the feudal age landmark. So they should really get off to a good start in the game, and then later on, obviously, they'll still research at a pretty fast rate compared to villagers constructing, but they still don't have that option, of course, to speed it up. And so, yeah, I think this will have quite a high impact on the early game.
And speaking of the early game too, they also have the berry changes, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually a good segue. We're going to be talking now about the Abbasid and Delhi Sultans having share changes. Eric, as you mentioned, the berry change. So this specifically is berry harvest bonus increased from 25% to 30%, and the carry capacity from 10 to 13. Yeah.
So yeah, we want these civs, like, we have this asymmetric gameplay, and we want the civs to feel different, like right from the get-go in terms of what they're doing. And there's a pretty good job with a lot of different civs. It's like, okay, I want to like build the prelate really early with HRE, or like the Chinese, they want to be doing the official kind of thing. But these civs, it's like, oh, they were just kind of like gathering sheep and kind of just like hanging out. So we really wanted to like push the like, yeah, berries are awesome. I see them, I want to go out there and like get them at the very beginning and start getting that extra food income. These changes, we did specifically make them to really target helping the Abbasid. But you'll notice that the Abbasid and the Delhi share this change, right? They both have the same berry gather bonus, and Delhi is already doing quite well in terms of pick rate and win rate and stuff like that. So we're definitely a little bit nervous about this one on the Delhi side. Like, oh, they're already doing well, and this is like a really nice buff for them. So we'll definitely be like very closely watching how they do after this change, and we are already predicting and like working on some other potential balance changes for like the next update to sort of like even out their early game, because they get a lot of nice early game things. Like they get the extra starting wood, so then they can build the mosque, and then they get the free scholar, and they get like free wheelbarrow, right? Like there's a lot of really nice stuff going on early game for Delhi. So that's definitely going to be an area of focus for us for the next update.
Yeah, it's funny watching the Delhi go from sort of dead last to now being very, very strong, very dominant. So we'll monitor things carefully. We know this update will obviously improve Delhi a little bit too, but our next update shouldn't be too far along, and we have some more things planned there too.
Exactly. And that's the best part of it. Like we have so much telemetry data hooked up that we're tracking how players are aging up, what they're doing for resource collection, and win rates are obviously, pick rates and win rates are obviously a big part of that. So continue to play the civs that you enjoy. Continue to, if you love playing Delhi, keep playing, because we're going to keep collecting data. And speaking of which, why don't we talk about the DAO changes that we've got here for both the Abbasid and the Delhi? This specifically is increased explosive Dow detonation range from 1 to 2 tiles, so it matches the intended explosion radius, and the damage increased from 8 to 10.
Yeah, so the explosive doubt, we're just normalizing it basically. It had a smaller area of effect, and we find that with the demolition ships right now, the effect, because it's the same effect, it's not very readable with which ship is doing what. So we've made the ships essentially do the same. And then as we go forward, we have a lot of plans for naval, as we mentioned previously. So we want to do more there again in future. But for now, it makes sense that the Dow demolition ship is the same as the other demolition ships for consistency. And then in terms of the damage, essentially the Dow is just the weakest ship. It needed a damage buff, especially like in maps where the rush distance on water is lower. You don't really have so much of a fallback or time to build up a lot of units. And so because the Dow originally, the intent was, okay, it's going to be fast, it's going to have a large line of sight, but it's going to be weaker. So you have to sort of choose when to engage carefully, but you also get the opportunity to choose when to engage because it's also the fastest ship. It doesn't really work out on these small river maps, and since these are the maps which are played more often, more popular, that's kind of really falling down for the Abbasid there and the Delhi there, and so we want to bring them up and make them competitive with the other ships in Tier 1.
Yeah, I love what you said, kind of comparing the water sort of environments we've built compared to land, right? Because we have that sort of same paradigm with like the horseman versus the spearman, right? Where the horseman's a lot faster, but the spearman, is much more powerful if the two fight. So you have to like use your mobility to like pull the guy around and find the right time and angle to go and attack the enemy. But when you're on a small pond, like you can't run around and do all this juking and stuff like that, right? So it kind of just made sense that its power level would be the same as everything else. And then like later on, I think it works out pretty well because there's that like additional sales tech that they don't have, right? So while they're faster a little bit early, the other civs can kind of balance it out later on, right?
Yeah, they can catch up to the speed.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So that is the changes to the Abbasid and the Delhi Sultanate. Let's move on to the Chinese. A big impact on them in general was from all the siege changes, but specifically, we did change the Chinese clock tower bombard health from 720 to 600. Eric, you already touched upon it earlier, so I don't think we need to dive into it anymore. But a big one is the supervised ability on landmarks is no longer able to happen.
Yeah,
And this
balance.
tied more specifically to the clock tower, right? More than
Yeah,
than
exactly.
anything.
And like balance wise, we sort of look at the landmarks, holistically across all the civs, right? And all the H3 landmarks, what are they providing? And the clock tower was specifically balanced in mind if you're producing, one siege weapon at the normal rate that siege weapons are produced. However, when you supervise it, the landmark is now 3 times more powerful than any other landmark, which that's quite a bit more value than is intended for that. Granted, people will run out of resources to be able to like feed that, but it was never really intended that you could get such a high output from the landmark. And also the gameplay is a bit more just like interesting and dynamic if like you actually want to build multiple siege weapons if you're going for like a really siege heavy strategy. So and then as well, since you can't just pump as much resources into these super powerful, high health siege weapons, you're gonna be making a more diverse army. You're gonna be adding more spearmen and more, archers or whatever. So we think in general, it just makes the gameplay a lot more dynamic and a lot more interesting if players are building an army of different units instead of just focusing on one thing.
Yeah, and just to briefly add to that as well, I mean, the Chinese kind of had a bit of a stacking problem, right? Because
Oh
it's
yeah.
not just the extra health that you're getting, but you're also then getting the extra production, but then they have the unique techs as well. And one of those unique techs is reload drills, and we've reduced the bonus from that from 33% to 20%. So Eric, maybe you can continue talking about more of the Chinese siege.
Uh, yeah, I mean they also get the gunpowder tech, right, where all their ranged units get an extra +2 range.
Yeah.
So there's and then they have the dynasty bonus on top of that, right, where they can either have more health or move faster. So the siege weapons are just getting all kinds of bonuses, and it's like, yeah, why would you not just build an army of cannons late game with Chinese, right? So really trying to focus on having players encouraged to make diverse forces to optimize the strength of their army.
And that's a big part of, I think, we in general for the game across the board, not just to Siege, but he's mentioned having a mixed set of units should always perform better than just going for one spam of unit, right? And that's something that we always try to intend with our whole counterplay and strengths and weaknesses from each unit per civ, right? So, yeah. Another big one then, now shifting gears, is obviously the reload drills tech has been reduced from 33% to 20%. It's more in line with the other enhancements like incendiary arrows and chemistry. Totally makes sense. I don't know if you want to dive a little more into that, but I think it's just the general like approach we're having with this is to slow down the siege gameplay a little bit and try to encourage players to do other types of units, right? In general.
Yeah, and just the general sort of like power budget for each tech.
Mm-hmm.
There's this reload time reduction versus like attack speed. So 33% reload actually meant that it was attacking 50% faster. So like the sort of power budget for reload drills was just like insane with what you were getting out of it. So that's one of the big reasons we brought it down to 20%. So it'd be more fair and reasonable. Sort of, we sort of balance for relativity quite a bit, where we look at all the text and all the things across all the civs and sort of line up to make sure like the costs and the power level of those things are equal.
Yep. Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, and then last a couple ones, Nested Bees damage versus ships increase from 0 to 4. That's pretty straightforward, like we talked about, the whole siege weapons being able to attack. Again, it makes sense when you're firing a storm of arrows at a ship. You should be able to-
Rocket
Fire
arrows.
as
Yeah.
well.
Rocket arrows, sorry. Rocket arrows. Let me make that clear. Yeah. And then lastly, a bug where the Imperial Tax collection cooldown sometimes didn't trigger. Quality of life fix on that. So let's move on to the HRE. This one is a bit of a buff here. I'm seeing here both the increased Perlet base move speed from 1 to 1.12, and then Inspire cast rage increasing from 3 to 4 tiles.
Yeah, more prelate buffs. I guess the previous buffs weren't buffs; they were bug fixes. But
Yeah.
now that it's fixed, found players want to use them, and so both of these are
Mhm.
sort of around usability of the unit. By increasing its speed, you can make it hustle a bit faster to get around your economy. You might want to have it on your wood line. You might want to then move it to your gold, and it just feels good when it moves around a lot faster. The other thing as well is that with the Inspired Warriors technology, you want to ideally put prelates in your army to buff your military units as well. The problem is, because they moved so slowly, if you bandbox your army and you have a prelate in there, everything moves at the speed of the slowest unit. So in this case, the prelates are just kind of holding your units back, and so you might send the army ahead, but then they're not getting buffed, and you kind of want to keep them together. So it just really helps with all of that and makes it feel easier and nicer to use. And then with the cast range of the Inspire ability, it's just increasing it by 1 tile, but it's specifically around, now that you have more prelates, you have to manage more prelates. It can sort of add quite a lot to the player's overhead when they want to make sure that these prelates are actually inspiring all the time. So it just gives you a bit more of a wiggle room, I guess. When you put your prelate next to your lumber camp, they'll continue to inspire the villagers for longer before they come out of range after they chop the trees away.
Yeah, one of our internal playtests with this change, I was playing as the HRE, and I was like, "Oh God, this feels amazing now!" Like they move really fluidly, and I can position them, like sort of next to my lumber camp, and then it'll also like they'll collect the sheep faster and the wood at the same time. So it's just like, yeah, this is just a really really fun, nice, smooth change. It just makes the civ feel so buttery.
Buttery, nice. and
They
also
have a yellow flag, right? It makes sense.
why not? And also, just because the prelate is an old guy with a staff doesn't mean he can't move fast. He can hustle.
He's been doing his cardio.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. We're getting off tangent here. All right. let's rein it in. Okay, let's shift gears to the Mongols. So, I know the Mongols are a favorite in competitive play. We've seen how they've been performing, and their early game mechanics are obviously a huge change up to it all. So I know we did some changes to the previous patch where we impacted the starting wood as well as the outpost. However, now we've made additional changes to raiding. So this includes the base level of raid ability reduced from 50 to 25. The raid bounty bonus upgrade is decreased from 75 to 50, and the improved upgrade bonus is decreased from 100 to 75.
So yeah, this change is it's good in both 1v1 and team games, because in team games there is a very large number of structures for you to be able to burn down. So we found that Mongols were really crazy, especially on like open maps like Dry Arabia, where there was just a lot of opportunity and huge bases. You could just throw waves of horsemen on a lot of different angles, and you didn't even care that they died because you got so many resources from burning down the buildings. You just created a whole nother army, and we were actually able to play games where you barely even needed villagers as the Mongols because you're getting so many resources from this raid. So it's good in that situation, but there's just this general sort of like snowballing type of thing that happens, right? Where if you can kill a couple buildings, you get extra resources, and then that lets you like build a bigger army to kill more things. So that was definitely sort of like a design element of the Civ that we weren't comfortable with being so powerful and so impactful. So not that that's the only change we are going to be doing for the Mongols at all. Like, there are definitely some cool things we have planned in the future for them, but we're definitely still looking at their win rates, and we're like, they're still up there. They've been up there for a while, right? So we're sort of doing more of a stepwise approach, and doing some smaller changes one at a time instead of doing like a big blast of different things. So we're definitely still aware that the power level of the Mongols is very high, and we'll continue to make more changes.
Yep. And like I said, it's the whole thing, right? We're gradually shifting and changing the meta without doing something from completely out of left field, and then all of a sudden everything is shaken up, right? So but again, big part of what you said, we are constantly monitoring. So yeah. The last Civ specific one is the Rus. We've tuned the high armory technology reload bonus from 33% to 20%. I think this ties to the Chinese tech adjustment that you guys made, right? But more in line with the other techs, right? And the power levels, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Is there
Yeah,
anything else more
exactly.
specific, or?
Yeah, it is basically attacking 50% faster effectively with that tech. So it was just like way, way, way super powerful. So it just kind of keeps everything at even sort of that power budget we've allotted for that sort of end game tech.
Yep. All right. So that is it for the Civ specific changes. What we have now is the what's next portion, which has some significant stuff to chat about. So I'll read it out loud, and then I've got some questions around this for you too. Grant, are you okay if I do that? And
Yeah,
then,
go for
we
it. I'm
can,
happy to just sit around. I've
dive into-
been enjoying the discussion here. Oh, just like the rest of the chat, I love hearing Zach and Eric talk. It's fun to hear their thoughts behind
Yeah.
all this stuff. There's so much digging into
Yeah.
all of this. Like, it goes beyond like what I think of balance and all of that. Like, these guys, they look at so much data. They know almost everything.
I mean, Zach is an amazing speaker. He could be professional, I think.
Eric, don't sell yourself short either, right? Like,
I mean,
Yeah.
we love having you
Yeah.
on here as well. So
Yeah, I mean, Eric is always advocating for making the game better internally, and he's always the first one to speak up when he sees an opportunity to improve something. So it's great to have him behind the scenes working on all of this.
Yeah, it's great.
And like, we are the balance team, but as Zach's saying, we don't just look at balance things to improve the game, right? We're looking at like clarity and art and communication mechanics, right? Like, just everything that goes into making the moment to moment gameplay experience better.
All right, awesome. Yeah, it's great to
right.
have you. All right, so Eliot,
So-
definitely let us know
Yeah.
what's coming next. Some exciting things.
yeah, so what's coming next is obviously in the last few patches and updates, we've been focused on responding to many of the prominent balance and bug related elements. that we've seen people talking about on the forums, on Reddit, on social channels. And following this patch, we're always going to keep an eye on feedback to better understand what we may need to bring into play prior to the big spring update that's coming up. The community roadmap, Ashley or one of the mods, if you can drop into the chat, something that we posted shortly after launch. We obviously have a big update coming up with the spring update, not only with ranked seasons and the UGC tools, but a whole host of balance changes and fixes and stuff, as well as some couple surprises we can't talk about right now. But I'm excited that once we do able to share about it, we can do so. The team's also monitoring big matchmaking wait times and investigating kind of steps to make sure that the experience when you're facing against opponents is it's balanced, and also doing so without prolonged wait times. I know we made the changes to matchmaking last patch, so we are monitoring that for continued data, and we will make adjustments as we need to. Now, one thing that I do want to address, because I did see it pop up in chat a few times, is around the ranked seasons preview we did last week. It's something that we showcased to the community, to our age insiders, to be able to give us feedback, and also from us, we are super appreciative because of all the data and the surveys results we got back from those who tried out the ranked seasons. And I already know there's work underway to make adjustments around that. But some of the early quality of life features that we included in the preview, those are being still worked on, and they're going to be part of the spring update that we're going to be rolling out. So that's why we don't have it for this patch. It was intended to be part of that big spring update that we got coming up, which is why you saw with the ranked seasons, because that was a slice of what the update's going to be looking like down the road. So we'll have more information about that later on, but that is for those who are asking about it, it will come with the spring update. It's not part of this patch specifically. Now, lastly, one thing that I think we want to address was the whole will Age of Empires 4 have a public update preview? This is something similar to the other definitive editions that have essentially a beta version of the upcoming update or patch for the game. And the answer is yes. We are working to, to continue what the other DE titles have done for us for Age of Empires, and we're also going to be starting to provide an early access to larger updates on Steam. We're going to have more details later this month, though, on the timing of it all, as well as the goals of what we're trying to do to achieve all that. Now, one other thing I want to address that has come up is those asking about dropped matches. So right now we are monitoring. We continue to ask people to send in reports and help us gather more data. I know the team is looking into it. I don't have much more else to say, but that is something that we are taking a look at. So we will share more details once we have more updates, but that is where it's at right now. So please continue to send in those reports, and we will be able to take that data and send it over to the teams over here at Relic and at World's Edge. So that is the big stuff for what's next. Eric, Zach, I think we talked about this a little bit before, but I think we have a couple things that we want to mention that wasn't included in the patch notes.
Whoa, this is
Whoa,
like for the guy who
exciting.
stayed to like the end of the movie
Yeah,
and gets like the little bonus
yeah.
scene,
The
right?
post credit, right?
Yeah.
I think the first one is, I think do I mention the M word, the maps word here as the first
Yeah,
thing?
say the
As-
M word.
Yeah,
as
do
something?
it.
Maps. Something to do with maps. Do you guys want to touch a little bit about that?
You tell him, Eric.
Yeah, so I saw a couple people in the chat were talking about a veto system, and we've seen a lot of people where they get into a map they don't like, and then they just quit out of it. So obviously, we want players to have a fun time in all of the maps. So we think the maps with like the rivers and the ponds and stuff are quite a bit improved with the changes that we've made here in the 11009 patch. Yeah, did I get it right?
That's the one.
11009.
09. That is right.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
So those maps we're feeling really good about those now. But sort of like the two that sort of stand out from like we have some data we capture in terms of how often people are playing each maps, and the specifically Warring Islands and our archipelago are like the least played maps and the most dodged maps. So we definitely want to refine and improve the gameplay around these maps and make them really fun and awesome experiences for players, and we feel like they're just not there right now. So we're taking them out of the quick match. So you'll still be able to custom map and play these maps. They still exist and are available for people who like to play that kind of map. But we want to sort of work on the gameplay and the mechanics and stuff around all the boats, and make sure that the gameplay is like dynamic, and it's like a compelling and interactive sort of like back and forth experience for the whole duration of the map. And right now it's just not there yet. So we're gonna make those improvements, and then we'll put them back in when they're ready.
Yep. And that's something, again, we are monitoring data across all the maps that are played, right? So that is the current, for that right now, that's what's going to come. And yes, it is for this patch. I can't read the BLB 451. It is for this patch. So that wasn't in the patch notes, but surprise, we like to share a couple things. And then lastly, Eric and Zak, can I ask, when can we expect this patch to come live?
Yeah, soon TM, Eliot, of course.
Soon TM?
Soon TM.
Soon TM?
Oh, that's not soon
Just
enough.
this week.
How soon is soon, Eliot?
Yeah, how soon is soon?
So for this patch, it is coming out tomorrow. That's how soon soon is.
Tomorrow.
For this
Oh
patch.
my goodness, that is later this week. It is tomorrow.
Yes.
It's not today. Any minute now, it's not today, but it's tomorrow. So, please check the Age socials. We will announce there when the patch is live. It will be coming tomorrow. I did not lie when we wrote the patch notes because we said later this week. Tomorrow is later this week. So that is coming out tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Tomorrow Pacific. I just need to make that clear. Tomorrow Pacific time. We are in Pacific time zone.
So that
sorry
is
to our
February the 8th.
European
That is the 8th.
and Asian players, but specifically and Aussies and anyone who else plays outside of North America. What we mean is tomorrow, February 8th. We will post on socials. Yeah, tomorrow's for tomorrow for everyone, but specifically date-wise, February 8th. It will be
in
tomorrow,
Pacific time.
Pacific time. We will update on our social channels when the patch goes live, so keep an eye on that. Obviously you'll see the notification in game. So yeah, that is the big update. So in terms of that, I think that's all I've got. Grant, is there anything else that any questions that we've seen or anything that we can ask Eric and Zak? I know we're a little over time, so just want to be self-conscious about that.
Just to address,
so,
I see
yeah.
Rice in chat asking what time Pacific time. Stay tuned for our socials for exact timing. It will be tomorrow Pacific time, at some time tomorrow. But we'll let you know on socials as soon as we have an exact time for you.
I have Ashley. What is time anyways? What is time anyways?
Let's not jump into that
the flow
discussion
time?
here. That seems a little off topic.
I don't think that's the right time
Philosophical
to
debates.
talk about the end of the stream and like talking to philosophy. No,
Oh, man,
Eric,
no.
Zak, sorry, and Ashley, and thank you to Ashley and the mods, Brian and Annie. Grant, is there any more questions that we need to answer? If not, then we can.
Let me just take a quick look. So I will say there are a lot of questions asked. We can't answer everything. Sometimes there's reasons behind it. Sometimes we just don't have time. We do want to make sure that we can get Eric.
We're
and
out of
Zak
time
back
today
to
for
work.
sure, though.
This
we're well over
was
time
definitely
at this
longer
point,
than
yeah.
we planned.
Yeah.
There are a lot of changes we tried to talk about for this, and let's see.
So yeah, I
who
think
doesn't wanna
you're right,
hear
Grant.
from the Zero Empires and Eric Dream Team, right? Like, of course it's gonna go long. We got a lot of stuff to say.
We could go all day.
I mean, I am excited to, when we do roll out our spring update stuff, it's going to be fun to have not only YouTube, but we're also going to look to get some of the other dev team members on stream here to talk about, more about the update itself. So stay tuned for that.
Oh my
We don't
gosh,
have
that's gonna be
information
like
right
a
now.
5-hour stream.
Yeah.
It's like an army of devs reading all the patch
We
notes.
will not
Oh,
do
I can't
5
wait.
hours. We will split it up and make it that people can tune in.
But
it's a lot of time for the. Yeah.
we will bring on other team members, so it's not always a balanced team. I mean, we love having you guys here, but to be fair, Relic has a few more people than you around, so we can bring some others on from time to time.
There's a lot of good stuff happening in other places
Yeah.
too.
Oh, yeah.
So we should hear from them as well, for sure.
That's why I'm really excited about the spring update, because it's a lot of the work those other teams have been doing, it's very substantial. It's super exciting, like all the programming fixes and the cool new UI things. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, no, the spring update should be good, and I've seen people in chat asking when spring is as detailed as we can go right now.
It depends on what happens with the groundhog, right? If he sees a shadow or not.
Wait, I thought he didn't see a shadow, so 6 more weeks of winter.
Oh,
Isn't
no.
that what? Isn't that
Oh
what
no!
news-
Oh no!
Okay, jokes aside, our spring update is not tied to the groundhog coming out and seeing a shadow or not.
We
Okay,
didn't get that
I just want to make that clear. I just want to make crystal clear. But we will have more information about that, including what else we've got coming up. You know, we did have our community roadmap. We did update. We did post after launch. So that is kind of where you could reference for the time being. But we will have more information in the days ahead. So days and weeks and such ahead. So
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I think
Eric,
that's
Zach,
good. Yeah, thank you
thank you
so
so much. Yeah.
It's always a pleasure having the two here. Thank you, Eliot, for hammering them with all those questions and talking about the patch notes there. And
just
having us.
to wrap up, just really proud of all the changes that we got in. I think they're gonna have a really big impact on the gameplay and sort of mixing things up and encouraging players to have sort of diverse armies and giving them tools for all the different situations they encountered. So super pumped for this update coming, and I can't believe it happens tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to watching some games and seeing people's reaction to it. So lots to still do, but also lots to enjoy from this one as well.
And as always, once you get your hands on the patch tomorrow, give it a playthrough. Let us know your thoughts. Share your feedback. Any bugs, anything like you see, the forums is the best spot for that, and we will be keeping an eye. We can make sure it gets to these two guys here to yell at them, being like, "Here's the feedback.
Not
fix all
just
these
you
things."
two, but
no,
the
we will
whole bounce team,
Yes.
the whole design team, the whole live ops team. Yeah, definitely. Guys, post about it. We will read it. So please do so. Cannot wait to hear, as Grant mentioned, Eric, Zach, to see the results from the patch update tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. And with that, I
All
think
right.
that brings us to the end of this stream. Thank you so much, everyone, from tuning in. We hope you enjoy the patch tomorrow. The patch notes are on the blog on ageofempires.com. You can go read them right now if you want to take another look through them. But otherwise, you'll get your hands on them tomorrow. Pacific time. Sometime.
Yes. Sometime tomorrow.
Great. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye,
All
guys.
right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.